The story begins on a freezing November morning inside Blackridge Correctional Facility, one of the most notoriously violent prisons in the Midwest. At 5:47 a.m., alarms tore through the concrete hallways. Officers sprinted toward cell 14 in the segregation unit. Inside, they found something they weren't trained to handle, something that felt less like a prison incident and more like the opening scene of a criminal investigation. The inmate was missing. Not dead, not unconscious, gone. Two guards swore they'd locked the door. The cameras covering the tier had malfunctioned sometime during the night. And on the floor, etched with something sharp, were 4 words that later became the center of a national scandal: "He shouldn't be here." The inmate's name was Marcus Hale, 31 years old, serving time for armed robbery. No gang ties, no known enemies, no disciplinary history violent enough to justify a last-minute transfer to solitary. Yet the warden insisted Marcus had attacked an officer the day before, a claim that somehow never made it into official paperwork. The disappearance triggered an emergency investigation led by Detective Lena Rowe, a former federal investigator known for her ability to sniff out lies before anyone else saw the smoke. When she arrived, the hallway felt too quiet. No inmates shouting, no officers chatting, just a long concrete corridor that smelled faintly of bleach and fear. She studied the cell door, no signs of tampering. The lock showed no scratches, no tool marks. Inside, the bunk was neatly made, the mattress thin enough to fold. The sink dripped every 7 seconds, and scratched into the wall were tally marks, 16 of them, uneven and frantic. "He wasn't scheduled for solitary," Rowe said, scanning the movement logs. "That's correct," replied Captain Dawkins, the unit supervisor. "But he attacked one of my officers. We had no choice." Rowe slowly closed the folder. "Then show me the incident report." Dawkins hesitated, just long enough to confirm what she already suspected. We're still completing it." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Something was wrong here. That afternoon, Rowe met with inmates who lived in the cells near Marcus. Most refused to talk. Some claimed they saw nothing. But one, a thin man with trembling hands, whispered through the food slot, "They took him at night." "Not the guards. Someone else." "Someone else?" Rowe leaned in. "Who?" "I don't know his name, but he wears no badge." Before she could ask more, the man backed away from the door like speaking had already cost him too much. As Rowe dug deeper, she discovered that Marcus had been working as an informant for the prison's Internal Affairs Division. His job? Report staff corruption. But 3 weeks before he vanished, Marcus had told another inmate he regretted ever cooperating. That something was happening behind the walls that made him fear not other inmates, but officers. Rowe examined the security logs again. 2 unusual late-night entries stood out. 3:12 a.m., segregation unit access granted. 3:26 a.m., access revoked. No name attached. No body camera footage. No witness signatures. Just a door opening, then closing. When she demanded to view the backup camera system, the IT officer swallowed hard. "Those files were erased before we got in this morning." Rowe's jaw tightened. Evidence never accidentally vanished in a prison. Not unless someone with power and something to hide wanted it gone. By evening, she reviewed Marcus's last known call from 3 days earlier. His voice was low, panicked. Nothing like a man preparing for a random disciplinary trip to solitary. "They're trying to bury me," he said. "If anything happens to me, check inside the walls." Inside the walls. Rowe replayed it 3 times, feeling the unease spread through her chest. That's when Officer Ramirez approached her, nervous, glancing over his shoulder. "There's something you should see," he whispered. "Something no one else here wants you to find." He handed her a key. A single, unmarked key. "What does this open?" Rowe asked. Ramirez swallowed hard. "A room. In the old wing. They don't list it on the map anymore." "Why not?" she pressed. His voice cracked. "Because no one is supposed to know it exists." Rowe's heart kicked against her ribs. A hidden room. A missing inmate. Vanished footage. Altered logs. A secret someone would kill to protect. That night, as she walked down the abandoned wing, dust swirling in the beam of her flashlight, she found the door the key belonged to. And when she turned the lock and pushed it open, she froze. Because what lay on the floor inside that room changed everything. The door groaned open, the sound echoing through the abandoned wing like a warning. Detective Lena Rose stepped inside, her flashlight slicing through a stale cloud of dust. She expected an empty storage room, maybe an old maintenance closet. What she found instead made her stop breathing for a full second. The room was small, bare concrete, no windows, no ventilation. In the corner sat a rusted metal chair bolted to the floor. Leather restraints dangled from its arms, stiff and cracked from age. And carved into the back wall, in almost the same handwriting as the message she'd found in Marcus Hale's cell, were the words, "They watch everything." A chill crawled up her spine. This wasn't a forgotten room. Someone had used it recently. There was a single object on the floor, a folded piece of paper weighed down by a prison commissary pencil. Rose crouched, her knees protesting against the gritty concrete. She lifted the pencil and carefully unfolded the note. The handwriting was jittery, rushed, but the signature at the bottom confirmed what she dreaded. It was from Marcus. "If you find this, I didn't leave on my own. They moved me. Please don't trust anyone, not even the ones who look scared, especially them." That was it. No details, no names, just desperation trapped on cheap lined paper. She slipped the note into her jacket and stepped back into the hall, her pulse pounding in her ears. Someone inside this prison had isolated Marcus, interrogated him, or worse, silenced him permanently. And every moment she stayed here without backup increased the chance she'd be next. As Rose exited the wing, her radio crackled to life, a burst of static that made her jump. "Detective Rose, report to the control center immediately." Warden's orders. The tone wasn't a request, it was a command. When she arrived, Warden Holt stood with his arms crossed, his jaw tight. Two guards she didn't recognize flanked him like silent, imposing statues. "Detective," Holt said, his voice clipped and cold, "we've concluded our internal review. Marcus Hale is not missing. He escaped. We're filing it as an inmate-initiated disappearance." Rose stared at him, incredulous. "He escaped? From a sealed solitary cell with no footage, no tools, no exit logs?" Holt shrugged, a dismissive gesture that set her teeth on edge. "Inmates can be creative. And what about the unmonitored room in the old wing?" she pressed, watching his face. Holt's eyes hardened. "There is no room in the old wing." He was lying, and he wasn't even trying to hide it. The blatant dismissal was a clear message: drop it. Rose took a small step forward, invading his space just enough to show she wasn't intimidated. "Did you or anyone on your staff remove Marcus Hale from his cell at 3:12 a.m. yesterday?" "You're overstepping," Holt snapped, his voice rising. "Your investigation ends tonight. You are no longer permitted on restricted tiers." Rose kept her expression calm, a mask of professionalism, but her stomach twisted into a knot. They were trying to push her out before she could connect the dots, which meant she was close, dangerously close. That night, she returned to the prison's administrative building not to comply, but to dig deeper. Using the keycard she'd borrowed earlier from Officer Ramirez, she slipped into the storage room where old segregation logs were kept. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and dust. Binder after binder of intake forms, transfer slips, and solitary assignments lined the shelves, a meticulous history of punishment. Then she found an unmarked binder, newer than the rest, tucked away behind a stack of outdated manuals. She pulled it out, her heart starting to race. Inside were solitary placement orders for inmates who were never officially recorded as entering the unit. The files had no signatures, no medical evaluations, no timestamps, just a name, a date, and one chilling detail on each page: observation hold 24 hours, dozens of inmates, all placed in one of the hidden rooms. No oversight, no records, completely off the books. She flipped through the pages, a cold dread washing over her. And there, at the bottom of the stack, Marcus Hale's name. Rose exhaled slowly, the truth hitting her with the force of a physical blow. They've been running a black site segregation program inside a state prison. Before she could photograph the documents, the light snapped off. Total, absolute darkness. She reached instinctively for her flashlight, but heavy footsteps thundered toward her from the hallway. 3, maybe 4 men. She ducked behind a tall metal shelving unit, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Spread out," a voice ordered. She took the binder. "Find her," it was Captain Dawkins. Ro gripped her flashlight, knowing she had seconds to escape. Any mistake, any sound, and she'd vanish into one of those unlisted rooms, just like Marcus. The footsteps moved closer, slow and deliberate. Searching, Ro crawled toward the back of the room, her hands feeling along the cold floor until she found a narrow gap between the wall and an inactive HVAC duct. She squeezed through, the rough metal scraping her arms, then pulled herself into the tight confines of the maintenance tunnel. Above her, she could hear the guards storming through the storage room, their voices sharp and angry. "She can't be far," Dawkins barked. "Warden wants her stopped before sunrise." Stopped. Not detained. Not questioned. Stopped. The word echoed in her mind, a clear and brutal threat. Ro moved through the pitch-black tunnel, her breath sharp and uneven. The binder tucked under her arm felt like a live explosive. When she reached the far exit, she pushed open the rusted grate and tumbled into the cool night air behind the prison. She scrambled to her feet, sprinted to her car, and locked the doors. Her hands were shaking as she started the engine. Then her phone buzzed, the sudden vibration making her flinch. A text from an unknown number. It read, "You're in danger. Meet me at AM in the staff parking lot. Come alone. I know where Marcus is." Rose stared at the message on her screen, her chest tightening. Someone inside the prison wanted to help her, or they wanted to lure her into a trap. Either way, she had to take the risk. Because if Marcus was still alive, every second mattered. But when she arrived at the dark, empty parking lot at 2 a.m., and saw who stepped out from behind the prison transport van, Detective Lena Rowe tightened her grip on the binder as a figure stepped out from behind the transport van. The dim floodlight above the lot flickered, casting a long, crooked shadow across the pavement. It was Officer Ramirez. But something was wrong. His hands trembled. His uniform was wrinkled as if he had been grabbed, shoved, or worse. And his eyes, normally restless and darting, looked hollow, almost resigned. "You shouldn't have come alone," he whispered. Ro didn't lower her guard. "You're the one who texted me." Ramirez shook his head slowly. "No, they took my phone." Before Ro could respond, another voice echoed across the lot. Well, look who couldn't resist a late-night invitation." Captain Dawkins stepped out from the shadows, flanked by 2 guards in tactical gear. He walked with the casual confidence of a man who had already decided the ending of tonight's story. "You've caused quite a mess, Detective," Dawkins said, "and unfortunately for you, we clean up messes the same way around here." Ro kept her back against her car, calculating distance, numbers, weapons. She didn't stand a chance in a fight, but she didn't need to win. She only needed to survive long enough to expose the truth. "Where's Marcus Hale?" Ro asked, voice steady. Dawkins grinned. "Closer than you think." He snapped his fingers. One of the guards opened the back door of the transport van. Inside, curled in the corner like a discarded body, was Marcus. Alive. Barely. His wrists were bruised, his ankles strapped with makeshift restraints. His eyes blinked against the light, confused, terrified, but undeniably alive. Rose stepped forward instinctively. "Marcus, not another step," Dawkins warned, pulling his weapon. Marcus tried to speak, but only a rasp escaped. "Don't trust." A guard struck him in the ribs, cutting him off. Rose felt rage burn through her fear. "If you think you're going to bury this, you're delusional. I have everything. The logs, the room, the binder." Dawkins finished for her. "You mean this binder?" He nodded at the guard beside him. The man held up a second binder identical to hers. Ro froze. Dawkins laughed. "You really think we didn't see you snooping around the admin wing? You left fingerprints on the shelving. You triggered 2 silent sensors. We watched the whole thing. The binder you took," he smirked, "a decoy. Planted weeks ago." Ro felt the floor tilt beneath her. She opened the binder in her arms, flipping pages. Fake names, fake dates, fake signatures. Every detail carefully engineered to look real. "You were supposed to find it," Dawkins said. "We wanted to know how close you were. And now we do. Ramirez clenched his fists, breathing fast. She didn't deserve this. None of them did. Dawkins turned, annoyed. You've always been a problem, Ramirez. Too soft. Too curious. Rose stepped slightly toward him. Ramirez, listen to me. You brought me the key. You wanted the truth out. He nodded shakily. There's another logbook. The real one. I hid it in A gunshot cracked across the lot. Ramirez fell to his knees, eyes wide. Rose screamed. No. Dawkins lowered his smoking weapon. Loose lips. Ramirez collapsed face first onto the asphalt. Rose's heart pounded like a war drum. She forced herself not to crumble. Not now. Not here. Because in that single moment when the guards looked down at Ramirez's body, Rose saw it. The opening. She lunged toward her car, dove inside, slammed the door, and jammed the lock as gunshots shattered the rear window. She floored the accelerator. The engine roared. Tires screeched. Bullets sparked off the trunk as she sped toward the service road. Her phone buzzed violently in the cuffholder. She risked a glance. A notification. Backup camera footage uploaded to secure cloud. Her breath seized. Hours earlier, after discovering the hidden room, she had set her body cam to automatically sync any recorded footage whenever she got near her car. And when Dawkins and his men confronted her with their fake binder, she had kept the camera facing them. Everything they said, everything they did, recorded. Rose didn't stop driving until she reached the sheriff's substation 2 towns over. Blood from a glass shard dripped down her arm, but she barely felt it. She stormed inside. I need the U.S. Marshals, Internal Affairs, the state attorney, now. It took 40 minutes for the cavalry to arrive. It took 10 hours for warrants to be signed. And it took one long, brutal night for Blackridge Correctional Facility to be taken over by federal agents. Captain Dawkins was arrested at dawn. The warden an hour later. 14 officers, including 3 supervisors, were dragged out in cuffs before noon. They found the real logbook exactly where Ramirez had tried to tell her it was. Behind a false panel in the control room. 38 inmates had been secretly placed in off-record observation rooms. 3 were still missing. Marcus Hale survived, though just barely. He was placed under protective custody and became the key witness in one of the biggest prison corruption cases in state history. Detective Rowe visited Ramirez's grave 2 months later. She placed her badge on the stone for a long moment, honoring the man who had given everything to expose the truth. Officially, Blackridge's illegal solitary program was shut down forever. Unofficially, 3 months after the arrests, another distressed inmate in a different state prison scratched 5 words on his cell wall before dying under suspicious circumstances. They watch everything. Still, and if you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe so you don't miss it.